In the name of God, benevolent, the most merciful. Hello, everyone. Today I will be giving a lecture on this new, I guess, conceptual position I'm acknowledging as the divine cognitive fields. I think this is equivalent to like a next level discovery of our time. And it's really strange to talk about it because it's something that in the future will be normal, but it isn't now. Yeah, so just a second before this lecture, dive into it. Gotta relocate my parking, guys. Hold on. Perfect. There we go. Okay. So, to dive into it, folks, this lecture is very important because I will be introducing you or doing my best to explain to you what the divine cognitive fields are. We need the divine cognitive fields, or the divine cognitive fields is helps us explain why people get random thoughts, why in some sense your thoughts and imagination does not just belong to the idea of you, the fact that you think that your mind is just dependent on a singular position of itself is an error. And what I'm going to be like, the purpose of this episode is not only for us to look into the divine cognitive fields a bit deeper, like that idea, but for me to explain to you that I've had a revolutionary perspective, an update on reality. And it's strange because before we have a global academic acknowledgement of this, I feel I have discovered something earlier. And it feels weird. It feels cool. It feels like I am tasked with, like an explorer that has discovered an uncharted territory to come and introduce this uncharted territory or explain it. Now, anytime you hear the terms divine cognitive field, okay, cognition has to do with the nature of your mind, and you can say your human processing power, okay? Now, I'm going to read something for you. This is the research component. I read a summary of this yesterday, but I'm going to. So, divine cognitive fields. First, we're going to look at what does it mean in accordance to an academic 2025 understanding. Like, what could those words mean? That phrase. It says, what could divine cognitive fields mean academically? If we translate your phrase into language an academic could work with, it would roughly touch three areas. One, the philosophy of mind, consciousness studies. Some views, panpsychism, that means everything has consciousness, idealism, specific structure to consciousness, neutral monoism, suggests that mind or awareness is fundamental, not just a byproduct of the brain. So the first thing from philosophy of mind is like, has there been people talking about, in some sense, the mind not just being a byproduct of the brain? Yes. Then we go here. The idea of a, in quotations, field is used as a metaphor. Just like there is an electromagnetic field that is everywhere and manifests as different patterns, there could be a field of consciousness that manifests as individual minds. Academically, this is not usually called divine, in brackets that's theology, but conceptually, a universal field of awareness is not far from speaking about God's knowing presence. 2. Theology, mystic traditions. In classic theism, Islamic, Christian, Jewish, God is omniscient, knowing all things, omnipresent, present everywhere, but not as a material object. Mystical language often speaks of the heart or mind, in quotations, immersed in God's knowledge. You formalize this as all finite consciousness exists within the infinite consciousness of God. That within is basically a cognitive field. 3. Cognitive science and quotation fields. Mainstream cognitive science doesn't talk about God, but it does describe the mind as emergent patterns of information processing. Explore global workspace theory, where consciousness is a global field broadcasting information to specialized modules. Yes, guys, this is it. That's the divine. That's like how you should view it. Where your consciousness is a global field broadcasting information to specialized module. That means my body is a specialized module, right? And there's this global field of unknown force, right? And when this unknown force and the module, it in some sense informationalizes reality. Okay, it transforms it into, in some sense. So you need to understand that the human mind, because it's positioned in the body, is stuck in a filtration process. Okay, everything that is meaningful to you, you're most likely processing it in accordance to your individualism. Here it says, while not divine, in quotations, this gives a model of how many local processes can share one integrated field of awareness. An interesting analogy for a divine cognitive field. So academically, in quotations, divine cognitive fields. Now what I'm reading for you here is based on a research I did yesterday. Now, I also in yesterday's lecture, I also had shared this thought that the final moment is God, not death. The final of our lives is not death, because there is intelligence here. Death is the final moment of the body. But what was there here? But what was there here more than the body? And if we understand that individualism isn't the perspective or yesterday's topic, but anyways, I'm gonna read it here. From academic perspective, this sentence sits at the intersection of phenomenology of death, how humans experience dying, psychology of death and afterlife, what religious traditions say, psychology of the dying, how consciousness changes as the brain shuts down. Phenomenologically, theologically, the phrase means what we fear, as in quotations, ending, is at its most fundamental level not annihilation, but encounter with the absolute reality, in quotations, God. Sorry, not in quotations, in brackets, God. In Islamic language, the moment of death is liqa Allah, meeting with God, not a pure nothingness. Academically, theology, many traditions describe death as transition, passing, returning, being gathered, etc. In phenomenology, advanced contemplatives, Sufis, saints, mystics, report states where the sense of, in quotations, I will die collapses into I belong to God now. Those reports become data for philosophy of religion. Psychology, medicine, researchers study near-death experiences, terminal lucidity, in quotations, life review narratives, but they're cautious. They can describe what people report, not definitively what metaphysically happens. Academically, you'd say the thesis, the final moment is God, not death, is a theological and phenomenological claim. The ultimate horizon of human consciousness is not being, but relation to and possibly union with the divine ground of being. That's the current academic way of framing. Okay? So, folks, anyways, going back to the divine cognitive field. This is where the research component is done, and you will be hearing me talking here. I'm not reading anymore. Okay, so I will begin with giving you an example, a case study of this, and that case study is me. I will explain to you how, in my experience as a human on this earth, the divine cognitive fields have a significance and why it makes you smile upon realizing it. You see, right now in 2025, notions such as divine cognitive fields, collective awareness, and collective presence, and even the advancement of humanity, these are ideas that in some sense it's like I am challenged in the same way Prophet Abraham. I am no way in close to prophethood, by the way. Do you know? I am not a prophet in any sort. Do you know? Even poetically, I've spoken about it, I am not. But I am an observant soul. And so Prophet Abraham was tasked in going to the people of his time and being like, why are you guys worshiping objects that you made with your hands? And the truth surpasses your creations, for you are created. Prophet Abraham went and told those guys, stop worshiping objects. There is a truth beyond them. And I find any person finds themselves, like every person born may find themselves in such a state where they look at the people of their time, and at first they think they're living correctly. You think the people of your time are living correctly. And then you begin to notice that the range of awareness of the masses is very different. Do you understand? This civilization has played such an interesting game. Okay, civilization 1.0, by the way. It doesn't matter if you were born 1,000 years from now or born right now. The first civilization you find yourself in is civilization 1.0 to you. So right now, this is like, in my scope of consideration, I am right now inside civilization 1.0. What is civilization 1.0 doing? It's hilarious. Elon said if they make you ask the wrong questions, they don't have to worry about your answer. Every person who's been, I'm not talking about old school, I'm talking about like illusionists, magicians, like on America's Got Talent or something like that, you see, right? So even when it comes to sleight of hand, it's misdirecting. Do you understand? That means, imagine there's a bottle of water, okay, and there's 3 people that want to get this bottle of water, right? And person goes and says, hey man, I think this person out of the 2 should get the bottle of water and you shouldn't. And that person starts arguing, right? With that other person. It's like, why should he get it? And I'll be like, ask him. And while those 2 people are distracted, I go grab the bottle of water and drink it. Do you understand? That's strategy. Okay, at some point, strategy goes into the domain of the designer's perspective, and it's not per se ethical, it's geometry. Okay, that means when I look at the geometry of a building, I'm not like, yo man, is this building ethical? Do you know what I mean? It's just geometry. I mean, of course, the building gets built based on certain qualifications and getting a permit, and even you wondering about the Safety Association's view on it and all that. The CSA and whatnot here in Canada. So, anyways, where am I going with this? I'm trying to tell you, and I should use myself as an example, that I have been a human being born in 1991. That's when I entered the place physically. A couple years after I entered this place consciously as an individual, I acknowledge myself as an individual. If you ask me what's the earliest memory of my ego, I'm like, I don't know, man. One day I just was a person, you know? And so I was conditioned as a noun, like all of you. I was told that I'm a noun. I was told that the world was a noun, and they were in school. They shared how this noun looked different before I got here. But it took me a while to shift from a known noun into the realization that life is an unknown verb. There is a reason we're intelligent and we're not just like unconscious programs of activity. We are conscious of our activity. Just the fact that you're aware you have a body, just the fact that you're aware of reality, just the fact that in every moment you're not thrown into chaotic randomity, and that there is a sort of organization to reality, that we can stabilize it, compare reference points, and wonder beyond them, right? And I'm trying to tell you, dear listener, my whole life I realize human civilization has been this massive storytelling operation, this massive storytelling project over an unknown world. And every person I have thought I have known in this life, they have actually been unknown forces, and before they communicate or decide, reveal or express who they are, do you understand, they are an awareness to all the different thoughts they have before they act upon. So the nature of reality is that your body is like a character in a world, but your mind is like an antenna of all the various ways that this character can have meaning in this world. I searched for the question of human meaning. This was like 2 episodes ago. That was a very important lecture, right? And I was like, who owns the human idea? I was And so the truth of the presence of reality surpasses the human ownership. That means right now in 2025, human beings are no way living in the most advanced human state. They are simply just, in some sense, creating a model of themselves behind their eyes and thinking that model is what's real. Do you know? That means it's like my physical existence. Yes, you can say that's real. But is my personality real? Are these words real? Is language real? Is the thoughts we have before we communicate real? And that the true answer is, if you have access to reality, you have access to reality. Right? But it's different types of reality. So in front of my eyes, I notice I'm an object. But when I close my eyes, I can still see. If I tell you close your eyes and imagine an apple, like you saw something and light wasn't entering your eyes. So what does that mean? The brain provides the human intelligence has a private room. And in that room, it decides what thoughts and objects it wants to be. And it's more like you're this unknown being simulated as a body, and you think that being intelligent means to simulate different probabilities, like your mind lives ahead of your body and then your body follows up. But when your mind truly questions itself at its core, that means, are there any egos out there that are wondering why they are an ego? One of the mightiest tasks that the human will can perform. Do you understand? Because the easiest thing to do is to agree. Seldom is this said, but sometimes agreement can be based on fear if the initial calculation hasn't been done. That means I have this attitude that it doesn't matter what people tell me, there could be a chance that we've all been duped. It could be that they distracted the species, and so we have been in a different state of our, evolving a different state of our being. You see, I looked at it, and you know the conclusion I had? I was like, all right, man, let's just forget the divine cognitive fields and the whole world for a second. What is human civilization doing? And human civilization, it seems, headed to a point where you are being directed to be a being that in some sense identifies more with your mind and emotions. Do you understand? Do you know why? Because it's a matter of control and the control of the body. That means there's this thing they say that sometimes when you build something, the greatest thing you got to envision ways it can be destroyed also. So it means that you might like be the greatest swordsman, you know, but in some sense, the deep question of life has been is where is its value. And so it's my realization has been that more than life is about me being a spiritual being, accessing power and enlightenment and all that. To me, it has come to my realization that it was a luxury and it was a delusional luxury and convenience for me to simplify the world to the degree that I think that my perspective can contain it properly. Do you know? There's a part of me that, you know, if there were people who were about to jump from a building or use a bridge the wrong way, all I would tell them would be like, hey man, relax, right? Life is an imperfect process. We cannot expect our couple pound brain to comprehend all of reality at once. Therefore, you need to simplify its range of reality and simplify the self to be. Because to me, you know what my sometimes the greatest suffering can be, and it doesn't matter if you're born in a poverty-stricken country or in a developed country. You know, it doesn't matter where you're born. It's in some sense that feeling that your own mind shows you who else you can be, but to be it is a choice away from all the other choices. You see, sometimes when a person can't make a decision quickly, it's not because they don't know what to do, it's because there's too many choices, too many options. That means a grandmaster looks at a chessboard and sees so many different things that can be done. A noob looks at a chessboard and it wonders, why is there so many few things I can do in this situation? Do you understand? And it's the contextual belief. Games are played in accordance to what you believe the values are in that game. And so my point is that this was, I guess, the hardest thing to come to terms with. That yes, I have a biological body. Yes, I am an individual with a personality and a name and a backstory of a journey in this life, as an idea, a character in a story. Yet I have come to realize that prior to any sort of objective activity or subjective activity, I am a momentary awareness to my being. So we are actually, it's like they've distracted you. It's like the human body has distracted us from what our mind is, and the ideological modeling of the mind has distracted us from what our true presence is. That means, you like look at the words human being, right? You have two words, human being. We identify as these words, all of us, right? But think about it. There is the human part and there is the being part. Now, for the being part, it could be present in a more unknown way than in some sense the human part. And for me, I've reached that level of awareness where I'm like, wait a minute, man, why is everything human? Why is the right action based on what humans think is right, for example? Do you know? Or why is it that my whole life, who qualified me to be my own leader? This was a question I had. I'm like, yo, man, do you know? It's like, what qualifies me as a random, spontaneous moment of awareness that has entered the world to lead this force? Do you know? Because it's like I'm not like a general of an army, but I am leading the forces of my biological existence. I am leading the forces of my psychological existence. But the deeper realization is that in front of your eyes, you access, but that you have access to the outer realms, and in external reality, things are just shaped in a fixed way, in a physical way. But in your inner realms, when I say inner realms, it's actually the relationship of your unknown awareness to the field where all phenomenology moves in. But if there is a will to exist externally, you individualize. That means more than you're an individual, you are activated as an individual if you move in front of your eyes. Behind your eyes, you're actually a contextual being. So for a long time, I was like, what does this mean? Do you know? I'm aware of my body. I'm aware of more. So I'm neither my body, neither my thoughts. What is this awareness that's like kind of being like its whole moment right now? Do you know? I wondered about this. And then I came to this realization that it is out of my human ignorance that I want the human to be accounted for first. And it was strange. And I was like, oh my God, if I had a little bit more confidence, I would have been trapped in the simulation. I'm not kidding. That means sometimes when you're not confident in life, strangely, it could be God's mercy. Do you understand? As if you were in a world where if you were a bit more confident in, you'd be attached to that world, but because you weren't, that world passed you by. There's so many ways the moment can move, and how our attention to reality really is. We're wondering about the nature of truth. We are reaching that point in the human species where we have to figure out what are we going to do with, conditioning or brainwashing this. I shouldn't say brainwashing, but by having the species conditioned into individualism. Ladies and gentlemen, just like you go to a dead end, okay, your only option is to come back. And so the human species, for centuries, this is far beyond, I'm facing a power that is beyond me, but it is not beyond my Lord, my system admin, all of our system admins. And the human civility, so think of it this way. First, there was unconsciousness, stuff was happening without any attention to it. Then there came an attention to the stuff that was happening. Then the attention identified with the stuff. Then the attention realized it has an ability to be aware of stuff subjectively. So it started identifying with its subjectivity. Now it's realizing it's an awareness before the subjective model, in some sense, replicates the outer reality. And so in that moment, it's like more and more as we go forward in this world, you are discovering how you are the presence of an original moment rather than simulated details inside it. That means it's hilarious. We're in a world, yes, we can know each other, we can see each other, do you know? But we will never know each other. And that's the romance of, that's the, I should say, lament of the species, or the greatest type of romance, right? A being that is restricted to know itself because right now it's positioned to be something. Like, the question, like, what do you, it's like, yo, man, go and do something. Yo, man, go and be something. We hear those sentences, right? But what does it mean to go be something? Does that mean to go be something in the eyes of others? If I'm living for others, why should I care for myself? I should become a servant of, I should just become a robot for the species, right? Do you know what I mean? I'm saying it's all about where the value is. My whole life, I realized just humans, all of us, okay? program, conditioned in a program of self-obsession. Your whole life is an obsession with what happens to yourself and what it is. And this obsession is only there because the context was misunderstood. That means imagine you lived a lifetime and then you realized you had misunderstood something and you didn't get to see the original Earth. You didn't get to see the true potential of the species. Sometimes in my inner realms, I see visions of myself. Like, I haven't talked about this because usually I don't talk about myself directly. But and so I'll take the moment to this. I have experienced so many different conceptual versions of myself. I have experienced so many different experienced so many different contexts to reality, that at some point of after living 12,000 days here, that means waking up 12,000 times and being like another new day. Oh my God. Do you know, we're not day conscious, we're year conscious, and that in some sense is ridiculous. Do you know, count the days you've been alive, and in some sense count the days you can be, and you'll be more inspired than the years you in some sense acknowledge because you were too afraid of the details, right? The nature of reality is that it's either it's like there's three possible outcomes, okay? Either truth is below our awareness, either truth is our awareness, or truth is beyond our awareness. To the nature of this realm having a divine agency, truth is beyond your awareness. Truth may be humans must have the ability to consider that truth is beyond human. And if truth is beyond human, humans can't understand truth, so they're not stationed in this world to understand the world. They're stationed here to, in some sense, perform. To me, there's a very profound theological clue, okay? That means religion, why did it reveal? To me, the revelation is very profound. That means if Sherlock Holmes was raised in a Muslim household, why theologians, please answer. The revelation included, do you know, for us to know how the Creator created us. In the holy book, this is. That means we don't know who we are, we don't know what we are, but theologically, I'm Muslim, so as a Muslim, right, theologically, I am told how I've been made. It's like, yo, man, this is how you were made, but you don't know what you are. I'm like, what? Do you know? And so the clues I take from how we have been created theologically is that we have been commanded. And you're going to be like, what? Do you know, my ego doesn't allow anybody to command me. I'm the king of my moment, do you know? But little do you know that theologically speaking, there was just an original being here, and this original being created a soul, and it created it not like with Lego, it created it by command, by instant command. That means the higher realms are instantaneous. The lower realms are stretched out, therefore simulations can be tested there. You know? The cognitive fields is the realization that location is connected to the back of poetically God's mind. It's God's will. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that God, the one and only beyond conception, commanded us into existence. So your soul was commanded into existence. You know, the original human soul was commanded to perform in front of all manifestation. Through Islamic view, God commanded Prophet Adam, alayhi salam, peace be upon him, In other words, the first original soul was told to perform and say all the divine names in front of all creation. So God created us, God commanded us into existence, God commanded us to perform in front of all its existence, right? We performed perfectly, and all existence bowed except one moderator didn't bow to the system admin. And then the destiny of man began linked to, in some sense, this collision, this conflict of a celestial nature prior to our existence. So right now, the clue is that the system admin, the original, commanded us to perform. Now look at everybody on the planet. They're living hidden inner lives that their whole life is about, being an expression to someone else. And I was like, wow. Why am I not feeling this sense of like, man, like, where's my soulmate? Where's my wife? Why am I not having that sense of like, and I realize it's because perhaps maybe the seeking for validation has been bypassed. That means I never understood it, but as I get older, I realize I was blessed to be a ridiculously introverted and shy kid growing up, to the degree that I have more memories of being an observer than a participant in my childhood. You know? After a certain age, after I went to middle school and all that, things changed. But before that, it was different. But anyways, what I'm trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to tell you that the whole human civilization is ego-centered, but what we think is ego is a selection process out of the field. So the divine cognitive field is another way of saying your brain doesn't generate thoughts, create thoughts. It may link thoughts, but it doesn't create them. You're more like an antenna, and there's a divine cognitive field, a higher reality, a higher intelligent reality occurring, and its effect is manifestation. And what does that mean? That means right now human intelligence is limited to natural laws. That means I'm like, man, we're in nature, and nature acts in accordance to certain laws, right? However, from a deeper perspective, and through the acknowledgement of the divine cognitive fields, it is a suggestion that matter, just like the human soul, has also been commanded. That means existence has been commanded to be in a position. Okay? Even in the Holy Quran, God says that it keeps certain birds in the sky. Even like as if there's even flight is a divine command. Do you know? Laws of nature are not limited to human beings inside the laws of nature, understanding nature. The human being is, think of it this way, body, mind, presence. Okay, your body is known, your mind is semi-known, semi-unknown, your presence is 100% unknown. And it's been intentionally designed, the soul, for it to be unknowable. That means if you get caught into spiritual games, you're gonna play that till the end of time, bro. Because on some level, the reason deep down it's unknown, the soul, because if you truly understood the soul, you would realize you were never an individual. However, we have built civilization for individuals. So we have to act like individuals, but we're more aware of our individuality. Now, pay attention here. Look at what is the difference between a young child, imagine a 9-year-old kid and a 90-year-old guy. Okay, 90 might be too much. Let's say a 5-year-old kid and a 50-year-old guy, okay? Do you know what is the difference between a 5-year-old kid's approach to reality and a 50-year? Now, some people might be like, this is where the term smartass comes in, where they may give answers. They're like, man, different DNA, different souls, da-da-da-da-da-da. I'll be like, okay, sure. But when it comes to the relationship of being a human in this world, the difference between a 5-year-old kid and a 50-year-old person is 1, awareness to reality, 2, responsibility for what you're aware of. Do you understand? The child is aware of its own hunger. Do you understand? All intelligence seems to be like a response from a massive reaction chain. That means, like, imagine like some things were, some bunch of dominoes were pushed. These dominoes are still falling, except in one of the dominoes that's falling, that domino can see the whole domino chain falling, right? Therefore, realizing it's not just a domino, you know. So right now, to use the divine cognitive field, so I guess the whole point of it was responsibility level between the 5-year-old kid and the 50-year-old man, right? The whole point of it is, as you become more aware of reality, you're not just responsible for compartmentalizing it and organizing it, right? Do you know that means it's a choice of every child in the educational system. If you just want to hear information, or when someone speaks to you, you understand it on the spot. That means you have to be able to connect it to a image of a reality. Anything you can't, any word you can't connect to something real in your experience, you forget, by the way. Also, it has to do with long-term memory and the more abstract way you give it meaning. Do you know? But I guess to finish up the lecture here, dear viewers, smiling realizations, or just smiling when you notice the divine cognitive fields, it means that right now you think you're hearing my voice, but my voice only exists because as an unknown force, I'm choosing to keep ownership of it. That means if I disown my name, if somebody calls me by that name, I don't need to answer. Do you understand? So right now you think you're listening to another individual, right, who has an individual biological body. That's true, right? And you think you're listening to an individual because he's communicating as an individual character through language. But I am telling you, folks, you have not just been listening to me. Me is a consideration. If I consider myself, then I am a self to you. In personality wise, physically, yeah, if you see me, I'm an individual being, like a different body, like a different human organism, right? But I'm telling you that my awareness how I'm a human organism has made me realize that free will can only be interpreted as what selects. The choices are not up to it. That means in the same way you didn't create the world, but you get to choose what to do in it. Similarly, the inner realms are actually the divine cognitive fields, and you're choosing among what arises in your inner realms. In that, excuse me, the inner realms are your, like, the range of your antenna. Okay, so I'm saying in the same way, there is an intelligence in front of your eyes that moves reality that has nothing to do with your free will, right? Similarly, there is an intelligence, contextual intelligence. So the context of so the concept of you, yes, you are intelligently like navigating, right? But I'm not the intelligence of the context. That means I'm not moving the world, I'm just moving myself in the world. So I have conceptual control. I don't have contextual control. So my free will is limited to is not in the same state as the intelligence that moves everything else. Do you understand? So I'm saying that in the same way, in front of my eyes, I'm not moving the world, but I'm getting to choose what it means and selecting from it as a concept. So similarly, behind your eyes, if you don't identify as a concept, you're going to actually realize it's a contextual part of human intelligence. So what does that mean? It means that behind your eyes, you think it's like, yes, it is a private room of imagination, but it's like, think of it this way: behind your eyes, you have access to a private space, living your hidden life this whole time. But I'm that dude telling you that It's that private space that you think is only the pitch black abyss of your mind where imagination and thoughts are hovering. That's not just that, okay? And it's a field. And in the same way, the soul is like in two worlds, in two sides of a coin. One side of a coin has external concept, external context. The other side of the coin has, in some sense, internal concept, internal context, but it only needs to be an internal concept if you identify as an individual. So think of it this way: your body is a concept of life, or how do I say it? Your body is like an idea you don't have to think about, you know? It's geometry that was given, and there's a part of you that can give geometry, and there's a part of you that before it even identified, like I'm pretty much saying, guys, the whole point of this lecture is that before I'm an individual saying something, communicating, prior to that, I'm an awareness of all the different things that appear in my inner realms. Okay? So you might think that I'm like talking is like reading, but it's not. It's more like you're traveling somewhere and you have to choose where your attention goes and what you want to say about it. So, I'm pretty much telling you in the same way we don't decide what happens. There's a different contextual intelligence that moves the world. It's like at the back of your imagination. It's not your imagination, it's the divine cognitive fields. And thoughts arise due to your individualism, rendering it as an idea. So think of it this way: how you feel suggests what thoughts you're aware of in your, what becomes visible, become aware of in your inner realms, right? Like, and sometimes it's effort oriented. That means if somebody's like, hey man, why don't I have thoughts? Why is my mind a blank? There's no such thing. It's either you're not identifying as anything for there to be a referential, like you got to cast a net. Or it's, think of it this way: um, the inner realms, to me, the most poetic imagery I can explain it as, and I have even before this idea of the divine cognitive fields, is that it's like putting your hand in a river, okay? And the water that hits your hand, it's like in the same way, that's your consciousness. All right, so sorry about that, guys. To continue on, just got a phone call. So pretty much I'm saying, in the same way you put your hand in the river, and the water that, like, you know, let's say in the water that goes through your fingers or makes contact with your hand, my relationship with my mind is the same. I pretty much just come and sit down, and when I choose to concentrate, suddenly the access I have to the scope of thoughts is different. So, guys, this is a way of me saying that creativity is a choice. Why? Because you choose how you set up your antenna. That means there's this gigantic unknown event happening, and we as forms, as known beings, are trying to know it in a certain way. That means the ultimate responsibility. That means what the 5-year old and the 50-year old human have in common is that at some point in their lifetime they will become responsible for the meaning of existence, and they will reach a point where, or is it something I got to generate? It's dependent on the style of being you are, and I've classified it as there's two types of beings: knownists and unknownists. There are some beings who are drawn to the known realities, and there are some beings drawn to unknown realities, equivalent to some beings exiting a building and some beings entering a building. Right? There's some beings that are drawn to civilization, some beings who are drawn away from civilization, but indirectly all are in service of the great, of, in some sense, the advanced humanity. That's the whole point of life. Okay, to advance, we've entered the system. We make this, the least you can do is update the system, and then then leave the system. That means it's like, okay, did I make the world I entered better than I left it, right? If because that's the way it should be, because why your unique DNA can't do something advanced here? To me, honest, if you ask me what the most advanced actions are on this planet, I will say any action that makes you aware of the system admin beyond the world room is the most advanced action. So the awareness that we are not alone, that the world is not empty, that there is a system administrative force, that there is moderators, that we are users temporarily here in a simulated testing zone, but also a divine surveillance state. That means somebody, when I've seen people look at me, I've reached that maturity as a being here to know that when people look at me, it's not just them looking. I know I'm conscious of the divine surveillance state. But the question is to discover the original command, the divine command to our simulated natural life. To be aware of that which yesterday feared but tomorrow smiles upon. Creativity doesn't belong to humans. Creativity is how the world is not just unknown physical space. If there's observable universe, well, guess what? There's observable forces and unobservable forces. You know, right? Based on what the force does in its result. But I'm telling you, you'll find that smile I'm talking about when you realize that if your whole life has been a burden upon an individual idea of you, you begin to realize it is actually how we are present consciously in a process that has observable and unobservable dimensions. So right now I'm speaking in the conscious waking state, and I am speaking about what is observable to me. But if there is an unobservable way I'm present, how can that observation be seen? Therefore, it brings into question the observable. So the depth of reality can surpass the meanings that we're looping in. Anyways, thank you for listening, and I hope you'll find the smile I'm talking about upon discovering the implication, the significance of the divine cognitive fields, meaning that people, what we think is a person's personality and ego, is what the divine cognitive fields and external reality has placed in front of them for them to select. That means every person I've met that they have a personality or individual, I'm not just I'm meeting an organism with that has gone through many layers of psychological decision making. Do you understand? And it's about becoming responsible, with not just the view of an eagle on the branch, but the eagle flying into the sky and seeing the whole forest. And that awareness is beyond the branches of knowledge. Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most merciful and the most advanced.